Every day, more and more people are making movies. Filmmaking has become the new garage band. I'm Gianni DiLoretto, and this is Framelines, the series that aims the lens on those who are out there making movies. Some are backyard Kubricks making movies for fun, and others are aspiring Spielbergs, professionals working hard to make it in the industry.
Framelines is brought to you in part by grants by the Greater Columbus Arts Council, the Mid-Ohio Filmmakers Association, connecting filmmakers with resources, opportunities, and each other.
Peter John Ross breaks down a movie-making technique right now.
Things don't happen in real time in movies. Duh, we all know that, but how does it happen? People just accept that the edits are happening and that we don't need all that stuff in between to understand what's going on. Let's compress the edit, removing all the little pieces in between, getting to only what we really need to see. When the hero is putting on their gear, in real time, it takes a lot longer. In movies, we want to just get to the good parts. We want to see what's most important to the story, and it's okay to cut out all the little stuff in between.
The Mid-Ohio Filmmakers Association put on a film contest where the filmmakers had 3 days to write, direct, and edit a short horror film. And now for some behind-the-scenes looks at the filmmakers who took on 3 Days of Terror.
I have the greatest respect for horror films because I hate them. They scare me, I don't like being scared, but yet I have the greatest respect because you either do horror well or it's a comedy. There's no in between. And so this was a very tricky production. So I went back and dug into something from my past, an old record that was played to me in music class called The Banshee. It scared the crap out of me as a kid, and it's about this ghost witch thing that scares people, and I kind of use that as my inspiration for the movie, and I think it turned out really well. We leaned a lot on the audio treatment. That was a big deal for me because we all know in horror if there's not a good soundtrack, it's not going to sell. And so had a great team, and one of the things a little different from some of the other film projects I've done is typically I have these huge teams. This one was a very small team. I had 3 ladies. It was an all-female cast, which was pretty fun. And then I have a cameo at the end, but I don't count me. And then it's basically myself shooting, directing, editing, writing, and Rusty Yannock did the soundtrack, who did a couple of other soundtracks for the 48. And Amy Masheter did my assistant directing and did a lot of great things to help me out, and that was essentially the team for the most part. This seems silly because I knew going into this that soundtrack plays a big role, but even more so going in this because the thing with horror films, especially editing, because it's such an editing process, is my fear was I'm gonna shoot it, I know what happens. I'm gonna edit it, I'm gonna know what happens. I'm not gonna get a good feeling for what's scary. So every time I was kind of gauging, as every time we added another layer to the editing or to the sound, it kind of sent shivers up my spine a little bit. I thought, okay, that's a good sign. and it kind of wear off because you see it 7 or 8 times editing. But every time we added another layer, but sound was such an important part of it, and I know when Rusty added the final mix to the sound to it, it really took it to another level, and we had rough tracks and just scary stuff in there to just kind of give it a vibe. But when we put Rusty's soundtrack on it, my goal really was, could we strip the video away from this film? Could you listen to just the audio and be scared? That was kind of my guidelines. Like, could this be a radio show? So that was one of the things. So I really learned that, just like we all know, audio is really important. Even more so now, I know audio is just so critically important that every little bit of that had to be perfect on this for me. The ultimate story is the key. Can you buy into it? Is it something? I looked for a lot of things from old classic horror movies and suspense thrillers, and one of my favorites is Duel, Steven Spielberg. Everybody can identify with that. We've all had trucks following us. We've all had suspicions, and it's like when you can put yourself in that film and say, "Oh, I know what she's going through. I know what he's going through, or I've been there." If you can put that person to experience that horror, or if it's a great film with a big rush ending that's a happy ending, whatever it is, the content is king. Can I put my audience into this film that they're like, oh, I'm into this because you just hit me where I live? It's really fun to see that filmmaking is just done extremely well here in Columbus, and I'm excited to be part of that.
Let's go to a short take and action.
The first feature-length motion picture with synchronized sound was 1927's The Jazz Singer, starring Al Jolson. This film represented the end of the silent film era and the beginning of the talkies.
Peter John Ross explains a little bit about making movies in this next clip.
What is a producer? No job on a movie set is less defined than producer. It is the most underrated and overrated title people can get. They're either the most unappreciated, hardworking guy in a movie, or someone who just happened to do something seemingly innocuous, but without that act, the movie never would have been made. Because of the micro-budget tiny shoots that have become so common, the job of director and producer have fused into one. But when the productions get bigger and those two functions have to be separated, a lot of confusion ensues. The producer controls a project from inception to marketing. There are all kinds of producers: co-producers, associate producers, executive producers, co-executive producer, unit production managers, line producers, and even more titles. On an Arnold Schwarzenegger action movie from the 80s, one of the on-screen credits is a co-producer whose sum total work on the film was that he was the hairstylist who the producer had hand Arnold the script. That earned him a co-producer credit. Kevin Smith, on several of his books, states he is the co-executive producer of an Oscar-winning film. The movie in question is Good Will Hunting. Here's the sum total work that he did on that film. Kevin called Harvey Weinstein from the set of Chasing Amy and told him that Matt Damon and Ben Affleck had a script he should read. Harvey said okay, and they hung up. Ta-da! He just co-executive produced an Oscar-winning film. In both of these examples, do they deserve these lofty co-producer titles? Yes! The movie never would have been made without them. The directors usually get the big credit by the press and the public, but the producers are the unsung heroes. Without Scott Mosier, there is no Kevin Smith. Without Lawrence Bender, we wouldn't know who Quentin Tarantino was. We may have recognized Ron Howard, and he would forever be Opie or Richie Cunningham if not for his producer, Brian Grazer.
Let's go to a short take and action.
Mise en scène. From set design to costumes to lighting to composition, mise en scène is a term that means visual storytelling or themes from everything you see in a film. In French, it means placing on stage, and the term as it relates to cinema began with the French New Wave movement in the 1950s.
Peter John Ross moderated a panel discussion with a few cinematographers about what goes on behind the camera.
Your gaffer or chief lighting technician, when you have one. Again, talk about when you're on a larger shoot and you have a gaffer, you have someone to help you with lighting. What's that relationship like?
The situations where I've had a real professional gaffer, it's kind of been a situation where they've kind of saved my butt, because I'm not classically trained like the two other gentlemen up here. So, working with big instruments and big grip equipment is not something I'm real familiar with, because like a lot of people out there, I grew up in the DSLR environment where, it's just smaller tools and smaller budgets. So, working with a real gaffer, I'm able to communicate with a person and tell them, okay, I need this to happen. I need to shape the light this way, and they know the instruments and the modifiers better than I do. So that part of the technical aspect that they can handle very well. But I'm sure these guys could talk a lot more about the classical stuff.
Because Greg, you started as a gaffer before transitioning to DP.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of a curse because I've worked with so many DPs early on. And learned a lot of valuable things from them. And of course, things change, because of the technology. But I have a hard time, and I don't know what gaffers would say when they work with me. I'd like to know. Because I have a pretty strong opinion on the way I want something to look, at least. I mean, I'm willing to, change. If someone's got something great and they're auditioning it, and they're ahead of me, I'm happy. A lot of times they're just waiting for some direction, and that's fine too. It just depends on the job. But if you have a good gaffer who can communicate with his crew, and who is willing to take orders, whether he likes it, the idea or not, just like we might have not like something a director wants to do, but he really we do it. That relationship is like gold, because if he can manage his crew, which is part of being a gaffer, I've worked with a lot who wanted to do everything themselves, and therefore you get behind. If they can delegate and have guys that know what they're doing to set things and stay ahead of the game, that's the ultimate relationship. He may not have to have like a great lighting eye, but he has to know the tools and be able to communicate with everybody and execute. And if you've got that, the sky's the limit.
Yeah, you got to have. The gaffer is your right hand man if they're good. And I've worked with guys who, I was doing my first green screen, and he was like measured down to the foot exactly what unit had to go where it went to get the exposure. Because back in the old days, you had to nail it. You had like a little, inch on each side. And that was it. But a good gaffer is worth their weight in gold, and they can save your butt. Everybody gets tired every once in a while. It's like, oh man, it's hour 12 or 13, and they're like, you kind of like, all right, here's what I think. We're going to do this and have a big light come in there. We want some bounce off the floor and maybe some kind of highlight on the back wall, and you're not doing. You got two of those, but not the third, and the gaffer will step in and go, hey, what about this? And go, oh yeah, let's do that. Yeah. And then you drink some coffee or whatever, get that second wind, and then you're back. But they're invaluable to have a good gaffer.
Especially the ones that come and you're under the gun, and everybody's worked hard, and you're ready to start rolling the camera, but there's like a little thing that you're just bugging you maybe, but you just don't have time to fix it. All of a sudden the gaffer comes up, whispers in your ear, hey, you need a little more backlight or something, and they just do it. Yeah. And it's like,
So one of the things that's really radically changed is as budgets and shoots get smaller.
Yeah, wow.
And you become a cinematographer, combination gaffer, and your own grip all at once. Now that you have to have some of that experience, how does that affect things? Is it a good thing or a bad thing that you now have to not only shoot, but you have to light as well?
It's bad especially on the client side, it's a bad thing because they think they're saving a bunch of money when you're on a shoot, and what's the reality of it is it's just taking so much longer and so inefficient, because just like Greg said, this happens all the time, is you got your shot set, and the person you're interviewing or whatever sits down and, okay, well now I need to tweak things. I have to move out of the way of the camera and go tweak those things myself. So it's very inefficient to do things that way. And plus you're missing out on collaboration opportunities where, if you have an audio guy or a grip or a gaffer or whatever it might be, that person might have some ideas that can help improve the look of the image, and obviously things are going to go quicker and much more efficiently.
For you,
Well,
Kate?
yeah, well, for me, it's true that I've seen crew positions shrink. I mean, over the years, they have just dwindled and dwindled, and many out-of-town producers, and they don't have to be from out of town. I mean, it could be locals too. They've cut out that some of the key positions because they just there is a rate structure, and it can get expensive to fill a crew, so they drop titles. That's the first thing they do, and you lose some of those relationships that you've had with crews that you've worked with for years because now they're not in the budget. You can't get them on the jobs. And I mean, I've seen it coming for years, and it's affected me greatly. But at the same time, it's one of the things that's had fueled me in learning how to light differently, changing the way I do things, which brought me to the LED world, and the ability to manipulate light fast and not have to carry heavy things because it's just the nature of the beast. By downsizing, your tools have to downsize. Things have to change. I can't walk around with 1200s anymore. I can't walk around with 2500 or 4K. I just don't have the help. I'd still use them, and that would get, if I had the crew. So when I have to put a budget together for somebody who's coming in and we're providing lights and a camera, I used to have a number that I would hit every time, and it involved a lot of HMIs and cable. It doesn't happen anymore. It's like, okay, so let me think about this. So I was Kino flows, so now I'm LEDs, and okay, I got this guy and this guy, and what's the skill level? So I'll build a lighting package, that will fit that job, and that's what's kind of caused me to change
and that's
my whole
great
concept of
that's a great
what I do.
segue. That's a
the
perfect.
control freak in me, it loves being the only guy on set, but I realize I'm not doing my job as well as I could. I mean, the film is suffering. I just shot a 48, and I was no complaints. It was just we ended up not having the crew. The people couldn't get to the set, and so it was a 12 and a half hour day. I sat for 20 minutes in that day. I lost 3 pounds. I had a blast. I loved it. But there's a couple. Well, I just remember I got up. I was like, holy. I was like, but I remember there were like several things. Oh, I'd love to put a different lens on. Yeah. I was stuck with one lens because I was running every little thing. Oh, let's put a little flag back there. Who's setting that flag? Me. Yeah. Oh, let's get that window light coming through. It was me, and I loved it. But I knew if I had like one really good grip, there would have been some more camera moves, etc. So
and more light control, I'm sure.
And more light control.
Yeah, you could have done more with the same amount of time.
Yes.
If you just had more people.
Yeah.
Peter John Ross breaks down a movie-making technique right now.
Film is a show me medium, not a tell me medium. A sign of poor screenwriting is when a film tells the audience something instead of showing it to them. By their nature, motion pictures are a visual medium, so they should show the audience events rather than have characters talking about them. Here's a scene that illustrates that.
Hey. Hey. I just had the weirdest dream ever. I was in this warehouse and there was this maniac in a yellow suit and he was chasing me, and it's like no matter what I could do, I just couldn't get away. He was chasing me like just all through the warehouse, and we went up these stairs and he got on top of me and was about to swing his axe and do me in, and then all of a sudden it was just like I woke up.
You need this more than I do.
Wouldn't you rather see the nightmare than hear them describe it? Here's a way to use the dialogue through editing. If we intercut the nightmare over the actor telling us, it won't be redundant to use the dialogue.
just had the weirdest dream ever. I was in this warehouse and there was this maniac in a yellow suit and he was chasing me, and it's like no matter what I could do, I just couldn't get away. He was chasing me like just all through the warehouse, and we went up these stairs and he got on top of me and was about to swing his axe and do me in, and then all of a sudden it was like I woke up.
You need this more than I do.
Give the audience some credit. Now, the most visual way would be to show the dream and cut out all the dialogue describing it. Seeing a picture is more interesting and visceral than having it described to you.
Hey. Hey. I just had the weirdest dream ever. Yeah, it seems so real.
You need this more than I do.
Even removing almost all the dialogue did not detract from the effectiveness of showing the dream sequence. By showing the audience instead of describing the action, it made the dialogue unnecessary. It's almost always better to show rather than tell in movies. Framelines presents another interactive project. Here's your chance to edit your own horror scene using the raw, unedited footage from our sample scene. All you need is a computer or tablet with free editing software, and you can create and upload your own version of the scenes. To get the footage, go to our Vimeo page at vimeo.com/framelines. Click on the segments, then click the download button. From there, you can choose the format you'd like, including Ultra HD 4K. Once you've gotten all the clips, import them into your editing software and start your edit. When you upload to YouTube or any other video site, make sure to use the hashtag FramelinesTV and follow the instructions from our site. We can't wait to see what you do with these scenes. Be as creative as you want and show the world what you can do.
Let's go to a short take. And action.
Whenever you take a picture on the set using a flash, you should always say flashing. The reason for this is to let the gaffer or cinematographer know that this flash of light is from your camera, and it's just a flash, not a bulb blowing out. When a tungsten lamp goes out, most of the time they flash as the filaments break. Out of the corner of your eye, it may appear much like a camera flash, and you're not sure if a light blew or whatever. When you have tens of lights going on a set, it will help the lighting folks out if they know. If you have 40 or 50 lights going on in a scene, it's easy to miss one that goes out. So help out the lighting crew by hollering flashing when you snap a picture.
We're sick and tired of cliches in movies. Here's an example of one of them now.
Hollywood has a bad habit of putting cliches in movies. They've been doing it for years. We aren't gonna stop them, but we can point it out when they do. Ever notice that in movies, cell phone reception never works? Especially when it would help a cliched movie plot? It's almost as if America is filled with dead spots.
Sit down, sit down. You, sir, are under arrest for attempted murder and for violating the Civil Stalking Protection Order. Stay down. We got you this time.
It's as if the writers are so lazy that in order to use a tried and true cliche, they have to eliminate the concept of modern mobile phone technology just to be able to regurgitate an overused plot device. Ugh.
There's a standard marketing technique that major studios use to promote most movies. At 6 months before the release, they put out a teaser trailer and a teaser poster. Teaser trailers are usually less about story or summarizing the movie, and just to kind of tease what the movie's about and what it'll look like. Part of the reason is that the movie isn't finished being edited and a lot of the effects work won't be completed. The posters similarly can be more abstract or just getting a concept out there. Then they released the first preview called Trailer A, along with the poster called One Sheet A. After that comes Trailer B and One Sheet B. Huge event movies can have a fourth trailer or several posters released at once for each character. These are strategies that have been used since the 1980s and is continuing very strong today.
To see extended clips, free online tutorials, or to find out more about the filmmakers, please visit our website at framelines.tv and please subscribe to our YouTube and Vimeo channels right here. Time for the wrap party. I'm Johnny DiLoretto and this closes another episode of Framelines.